One of the most common questions I receive is, why should I be running barefoot? Why should I give up what has been working for me in the past? Why should I try to learn to run in a new way? There's really 4 reasons why. Number 1, it's fun. Barefoot running is loads of fun. When you do it, you can't help but have a smile on your face. Number 2, it helps strengthen your feet, which leads us to number 3, it helps reduce injuries. And the last reason, it's cheap. I mean, come on, you don't have to buy shoes. What's better than that? One of the issues that arises in barefoot running is the question, are shoes bad? I present myself as a barefoot runner. I do most of my running barefoot. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that all shoes are bad. I'm not a big fan of heavy cushioned trainers. They tend not to let your foot work the way it's supposed to work. I would say, for most people, those are probably bad. There may be some individuals that those type of shoes are a necessity. But for the majority of the runners out there, I really believe they could get by with a much more minimal shoe. Does that mean they have to go barefoot? No. Sometimes a minimal shoe, like a racing flat, or a reduced running shoe, like the Nike Free, or a true minimalist shoe, such as the FieldMax brand of shoes, that line of shoes, or Vibrams would be an example of a minimalist shoe. I think those shoes would benefit the vast majority of runners. Does everybody have to go barefoot? No. Is it more fun? Yes. In my opinion, it is. But I understand the trepidation people have about going barefoot because it's kind of a scary proposition. Most people want to ease into it. Later on, I'll talk about my theories about that as far as what would be the ideal way to learn to run in minimalist shoes. But generally, I think most runners could get by with a more minimal shoe, and that really should be their ultimate goal. Now, I also think that most runners would get by, or most runners would benefit from occasional barefoot running. Maybe 1, 2, up to 4 or 5 miles a week. Maybe train 1 or 2 days barefoot. It doesn't even have to be a very strenuous run. It would still be something to help strengthen their feet. You would get some of the same benefits of barefoot running without having to commit to barefoot running full time. When you're learning barefoot running, there are 6 principles that I developed that I think play a critical role in learning how to run barefoot, or to make that transition from a traditional running shoe to a more minimal shoe, or going entirely barefoot. The 6 principles. Number 1, there's no single right answer. Probably the single most important of all of my concepts, or all of my principles. Each one of us are individuals. We all have our own little quirks. We all have our own different physiology. We all run in different ways. That's critical when it comes to developing barefoot form. There's no one-size-fits-all method of barefoot running. Each one of you will develop a different method based on your own gait, what is more comfortable, your own anatomy, your own just style. Barefoot running inherently is very individualistic, so there's no single right answer. Principle number 2, you have to experiment. This is something that all runners should do. Unfortunately, many don't. They just simply follow what is conventional wisdom. They don't have a systematic method of trying to figure out what works for them and what doesn't work for them. What I would recommend, try something new. If it works, keep it. If it leads to improvement, that's a good thing. Keep it. If it doesn't work, you have to be willing to discard it. The same goes for barefoot running as far as specific techniques. Try something. If it works for you, continue it. If it doesn't work, don't continue it. It's not going to serve a useful purpose to continue doing something that really isn't working. Principle number 3, your body is your best teacher. The greatest running coach in the world can't equal the soles of your feet or your body. As you learn to barefoot run, Your body's going to be giving you feedback, very specific feedback. It may be the development of blisters. It may be a jarring feeling when you're hitting the ground. All of that is significant feedback. And one of the critical aspects of learning barefoot running is trying to figure out or interpret all of those signals coming in. Oddly enough, the less we think about it, the more we tend to succeed at being able to feel instead of think. So your body is your single best teacher. Principle number 4, patience is mandatory. It takes a while to learn barefoot running. You don't just learn it, it's not something that you pick up, go out, try barefoot running, run 10 miles, and all of a sudden, hey, I know how to barefoot run. There's a process, it takes time. The less time you spend barefoot, the more time you spend in traditional shoes, typically the longer it's going to take to transition. Sometimes that transition may take months. Sometimes it only takes weeks. But you have to be patient. It's a process that you can't rush. It's really a tortoise in the hare situation. The tortoise always wins in the end. Slow and steady is the way, the ideal way to learn barefoot running. Number 5, relaxation is the secret to great form. The more relaxed you are, the easier it is to learn barefoot running. The easier it is to learn correct form. A lot of people will get very tense when they try running. The more tense you are, the more difficult it is to learn. I use the analogy, your arms and legs should be kind of like wet noodles all the time. That's a very effective analogy. Later on, we'll get into specific drills on how to teach relaxation. And the last one, the 6th principle, you have to enjoy the process. Learning to barefoot run should be an incredibly fun experience. You get to run barefoot. Most people haven't run barefoot since they were little kids. If you ever watch little kids run around barefoot, you'll see huge smiles on their face. Why? Because it's fun. If you go to any local road race, look at, I would say, 3/4 of the runners. They'll have some sort of scowl. It looks like they're in a lot of pain. Actually, they may be in a lot of pain, but a lot of the runners will look as though they're not really enjoying themselves. Then you look at barefoot runners. Barefoot runners almost always have a huge smile on their face. Why? Because they're having a lot of fun. So the 6th principle, you have to enjoy the process. The drills that I wanted to show you tonight are some of the drills that I've used over the years to strengthen myself. I'll show you a couple of the drills and then we'll go out and try them. This first drill you really don't have to try. It's just something that I found is very useful. I call it the jump drill because you're jumping. But it's not just sort of like random jumping. What I do is I stand shoulder width, or my feet shoulder width apart, get a good stand up with good posture so you're standing up straight, bend at the knees, and then jump and lands. But the key is the landing. You want to try to land as quietly as possible. And here it's not really that difficult to do because it's, it's on carpet. But if you have a little bit harder surface, it works a little bit better. But the key is you want to try to absorb the impact of landing as much as possible. That teaches you the idea of running light, because once you get to the point where you start running, one of the keys to barefoot running is to try to run as lightly as possible. I just equate it to running quietly. I think in the book I make the analogy of running like a ninja. Kind of adore that one. Ninja, that's cool. But that's what I really try to do. If it works better, if the analogy is better, you run like a cat or something, some quiet, stalky animal. But that jump drill gives you that perception of landing softly. And just practice that, jump 5, 10 times. It'll help develop that skill. It'll also help build up the muscles that are required for barefoot running. It's a fairly good exercise. And eventually you'll get to the point where you can modify that considerably. If you have a box jump, what are those called?
Plyometric boxes?
Yeah. If you have one of those of varying heights, you can start using those to jump up on and jump down using the same principle to the point where it becomes a pretty good exercise. One of the CrossFit things that you do, box jumps. So that's the jump drill. That's all there is to it.